So the UFC welterweight division is in a little bit of a tricky spot right now. You have Leon that wants to fight Masvidal, Colby that wants to fight Leon. Dana wants Leon and Colby to fight each other. And I feel like there is a pretty clear #1 contender, not Belal Muhammad, not Khamzat Chimaev, not Masvidal, and not Colby. So I want to quickly walk through the top contenders right now and lay out my reasonings for who I think should be next and why. And by all means, this is just my opinion. If you disagree with me, totally fine. I love debating you guys in the comments, so let me know what you think at the end of this video. So let's take a look at the top 8 ranked welterweights. I know some of them are obviously not going to get the shot next, but we'll see just how far away they are. And as we get to the top, we'll point out the clear #1 contender that it really should be. At number 8, we have Jeff Neal. He's coming off a loss to Shavkat. I mean, it was a great fight. He held his own very well. He pushed Shavkat to what seemed to be new limits. But at the end of the day, he is coming off a loss. He's also ranked 8. He's got quite a lot of work ahead of him. I would say at least a 3-fight win streak among the top guys for him to even be sniffing a title shot anytime soon. And then at rank 7, we have Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. He's getting up there in age, which is going to make the UFC a little hesitant to want to push him up the rankings. He is coming off a win against Kevin Holland. However, Holland wasn't even ranked when they fought, so it's not going to do that much for him in the argument for jumping him up the rankings to get a title shot soon. Though I think we all agree a Stephen Thompson versus Leon Edwards matchup would be pretty damn good to watch. Leon would probably end up dipping into his grappling skills just a little bit in that one, I think. But if not those two, moving on up, we have Shavkat Rakmonov, ranked at number 6. He's on a 17-fight win streak, 5 in the UFC, has looked very impressive in all of his fights, even the Jeff Neal one, though it was close. The way he finished that fight was really fucking cool, and I think it did a lot for his stock. It also showed that he can hang with the top of the division. That being said, he's got a couple more fights to go. He's got at least 2 more fights before he's going to get a title shot, and they're going to have to be against better people than Jeff Neal, and people with more name value, just to keep getting some more general fan awareness to him, because a lot of the diehard MMA people know of him and know he's a beast, but the casuals don't all know just how good Shavkat is yet. So I think they're going to want to paint that picture and just test him a few more times, make sure he's not going to pull a Khamzat and miss weight or anything, make sure he's a professional, which I think he is. I don't ever see him doing that. So if it's not Shavkat, we move up to rank number 5 with Gilbert Burns. Gilbert's coming off a win against Neil Magny. Before that, he had a loss to Khamzat Chimaev and then his loss to Kamaru Usman, and before those 2 fights he was on an absolute tear. Gilbert has very well established himself to be some of the top and best fighters in the welterweight division. He can beat any of them and arguably become the champion on any given night. I think a lot of you guys would agree with that. Gilbert has also only fought for the title once, whereas the other guys in the top of the division, I mean, you have Masvidal who's fought for it twice in his last 3 fights, Colby who's also fought for it twice out of his last 3 fights. Neither of them are on a winning streak. I know Colby just beat Masvidal, but it takes 2 to make a streak. So it's not like he's been just burned out on championship attempts recently, is my point, right? Like, he definitely could get a second one, and I don't think many fans would even bat an eye at that. I also think a lot of people would find that matchup very intriguing. If you have Gilbert Burns versus Leon Edwards, I think the odds would be fairly equal. It would be almost a pick'ems fight, in my opinion at least. Versus if Leon gets his way, he's going to fight Masvidal. Leon would be like a -400 favorite in that. I know Masvidal technically has a bigger name, but people know that he's pretty much a journeyman, as Colby Covington told everybody. And I don't think they would have too high of hopes for him actually going in there and beating Leon after seeing how good Leon did against Kamaru. I know it's completely different stylistic matchups, but still, you see what I'm saying. He would easily be a strong favorite. So we'll put that one aside for now, because Gilbert definitely has a very strong case in this. We're going to move up for now to Belal Muhammad, who's ranked number 4 in the division. He has a very good claim to this as well, because he's never fought for the UFC championship yet. He's on a 7-fight winning streak, coming off a really good win against Sean Brady. But what's going against Belal is, one, his style before that wasn't the most entertaining, and that can cause the UFC to make you take the very long path. And I think the biggest thing going against him is he hasn't really beaten that many top guys yet while they're the top guys. Not to say that he couldn't do it, but he hasn't needed to yet, right? Sean Brady was an up-and-coming prospect, yet to be proven at the top of the division, and Belal proved that he needed to keep working before he gets to the top of the division. But before that, you have his fight against Vicente Luque, who Luque, again, has kind of already had his up and down trajectory. He's always been around like the 8th, 7th, 6th ranked guy, never higher than that. So it's a good win, don't get me wrong, but it's not beating Kamaru Usman, it's not beating a Colby Covington, it's not beating a Khamzat Chimaev. And then before that, you have a win over old Damian Maia and older Stephen Thompson, where Belal just held him up against the cage and punched him in the face with little baby punches the entire time. Was not good for his overall fan stock, and I'm sure the UFC brass wasn't too impressed with that performance either. Though I don't blame him. I mean, you're going against Wonderboy, right? You gotta do what you gotta do to win. But my point being in all this I can see why the UFC in their heads would say Belal's got to earn it a little bit more. He's got to go in there and beat one of our top guys, impress us, impress the fans a little more to help build up the fight, and then we'll give him the title shot. So that being said, I know that they're trying to feed Shavkat Rakmonov to him, and that is a giant fuck you for a guy who's been begging for a title shot, who's on a 7-fight winning streak. But I can see why the UFC is doing it. They want to test Shavkat and build him up. Belal also needs to be tested a little more and build him up. So put them together, let the best man win, and let that guy fight for the belt. But the problem with that is the timing isn't going to work. Leon wants to come back sometime around July. It doesn't leave enough time for Belal and Shavkat to schedule in a fight, have it, and then rebook their fight with Leon. Leon's going to need a fight in between then that both Shavkat and Belal can't take part in if the UFC is going to make them each test one more time or two more times, two more in Shavkat's case, one more in Belal's case. So if not Belal, we'll keep moving up. You have Khamzat Chimaev, rank 3. He's up to middleweight. He's taking up a valuable spot in the welterweight rankings. I'm sure they'll get him removed soon enough when he fights at middleweight, but he is not in contention right now. Dana White has come out and said so. He said that Khamzat's next fight will be at middleweight 100%. So I'd love to see Khamzat versus Robert Whittaker, maybe Khamzat versus Dricus du Plessis, even Khamzat versus Sean Strickland. Those would all be really intriguing matchups, but that's a video for a different day. So now we're at rank number 2, Colby Covington, who again, Dana White has said Colby is getting the next shot. Colby has said, I'm getting the next shot. Leon has said, I'm not signing that fucking contract. So first I'll list out a few reasons why it could or couldn't be Colby Covington, but then we're also going to say, well, what if it isn't? What if Leon's championship status allows him to just flip off Dana White and say, I'm not fucking doing it? Well, who's going to actually get the shot then? Colby's coming off a nice win over Jorge Masvidal. He completely dominated that fight as a lot of people expected. It was a huge stylistic nightmare for Team Masvidal, so he got that one done. But before that, his 2 fights were both championship fights and both losses. So you have him not even on a win streak currently. I know he won one, but again, it takes more than one to make a streak. And when do you ever see anybody getting a championship fight when they're not even on a win streak? You can't even say they're on a 2-fight win streak, you know what I mean? So put it aside that 2 of those losses were also for the belt, which should hurt his case even more. Even if he was just a normal top contender guy who had lost twice, won once, you would never see that guy getting a title shot. It's very clear that the UFC want him to get it because of the personality and the eyeballs he brings. There's also a little bit to be said about maybe he dropped that court case to help Masvidal get back in the UFC. You got to remember, they gave Masvidal a massive big contract and immediately he went into a lawsuit. So there's big motivation to get Masvidal back in there. Whether he wins or loses, they can use his name to build up some new fighters and get their value out of that. I think that right there is why Colby, while he would give Leon a very, very tough fight, he'd be the favorite in the fight, he probably would win. I do think he needs to go out there and fight one more fight at least, get on at least a 2-fight win streak, and then you can throw him in the mix. That's all going to come down to if Leon will sign that contract or not. So we'll put Colby aside for now because there's nothing we can really do if Dana ends up forcing Leon into it. But then let's go see who actually should be fighting Leon next. Like I said, who out of these people I've just gone through is the real worthy next contender to fight Leon this summer? And after he beats Masvidal next week, it's going to be Gilbert Burns. And here's why. Gilbert, like I said, has only fought for the belt once. His war with Khamzat he technically lost, but that guy was like a murderer, like a godlike figure before he fought Gilbert, and Gilbert made him look human, almost beat him. It was an insanely close fight. I don't disagree with the decision, but that being said, Gilbert did so much better and showed how good of a fighter he was to the fans and to the UFC. He then goes out there and smokes Neil Magny and makes it look absolutely easy. And when he beats Masvidal next week, he'll also be on a win streak, unlike Colby Covington, unlike Masvidal. And then you have Belal Muhammad and Shavkat, who the UFC want to fight each other. Again, just to boost their notoriety before they go into a title fight. Gilbert is much more known than either of those two after his war with Khamzat, after his fight with Kamaru. He might not be a huge star, but out of the group of options you have there, you have Colby Covington at star level, you have Jorge Masvidal, and then you have Gilbert Burns. I don't think Belal Muhammad or Shavkat have more fans than him right now. Maybe in the future, but not yet. But even if you take away the fact that the UFC wants Belal to earn it a little more, Gilbert has fought the tougher competition, done very well against them, and has just as much of a claim if he were going to be equal with Belal. You factor in who Belal has been beating through his win streak. While there's no easy fights in the UFC, he has not taken on the big star, the creme de la creme. I'm not saying he wouldn't, I'm just saying they haven't matched him up with that yet. It's not Belal's fault at all. I think he would do it, and I think he could do very well against literally anybody in the division. But if it's not Belal because of those reasons, because they need to see him versus another great fighter first, then there's nobody else it should be other than Gilbert Burns after he beats Masvidal next week. I don't want to see Colby Covington get that shot again. I want to see him fight somebody else. Colby versus Belal even. Like, give Belal a little bit of a break. Don't give him Shavkat, give him Colby, or you put Colby and Shavkat together. Something like that should be done before you're going to give them the shot over Gilbert Burns. But like I said at the beginning of this video, that's just my opinion. I really want to know what you guys think on this subject. This type of video is a little bit different for me. I just felt there was a little bit of an argument going on if Colby should or shouldn't get it, prompted me to look into it a little more, and it just made such a clear case to me personally for Gilbert. If you enjoy what I'm doing, you like my content, guys, I upload every week multiple times, so hit that subscribe button. I put a lot of time into these videos. It would be awesome to help me grow the channel up even further. We've been absolutely crushing it so far. If you liked this video, you'll like my last video as well, so check it out, and I will see you in the next one.